This video is all about adding additional windows to our solution, and then of course the important part of being able to navigate between the windows. The final part will cover when we want to share data across windows during the navigation. So we'll go ahead and create a new project just as normal. So we're going to create our usual WPF project. So remember, select your language to narrow things down. So there's a WPF app. Again, give it a name. So I'm going to call this navigation because that's basically the topic we're going to be looking at today. Use the browse button to select the location of where you want to store your project and then go for create. And it will take a few minutes to set up the environment, and as you guys know, with any new project that's created, by standard we get one window for free that's already there. There's nothing on it, completely blank. So we're going to start off by first of all putting a few things on this window, and then we're going to add a new window to the project. So basics, let's get a couple of items on here. So I'm going to drag across a label, and I'm going to change the content to say welcome instead of label, and I'm going to update the size of the text as well because that's quite small. Okay, so there we've got our welcome label. I'm then going to ask them to enter their name, so I'm going to use another label to give them instructions. So this label is, again, I'm going to up the size to 30, and I'm going to say please enter your name. So it's just a basic welcome page where they enter their name and then they can click on a button to navigate to the next page. So I'm just make that a wee bit bigger. So obviously I need somewhere for them to enter their name now, so I'm going to grab a text box and pop it here. So this is where the user will enter their name. So I'm going to give this text box a name. So remember, anything that we want to interact with in our C# code, we need to give it a name in the user interface so that we've got a way of interacting with it. So I'm going to call this txt just to remind me it's a text box, and I'm going to call it name because that's what's stored in it. Again, I'll up the pixel size to 30, and I don't want the text box to have the word text box in it, so I'll just delete that. Okay, last thing, I need to think of how I want the user to be able to navigate. So my idea is that they come to this initial window, they put in their name, and then I want them to navigate to the next window. So I need something that allows them to navigate. So I'm going to add a button. I think a button is quite a logical control for a user to click on to navigate somewhere. That's what we would expect to interact with if we were looking to move forward. We would normally click on a button or a link to move forward. So I'm going to select a button. Obviously you can actually use any control at all, but remember it's got to be usable. You've got to think about how the user is going to interact with it and what they would be expecting. So I've dragged across the button. I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to call it BTN Next because that's what my button's going to be. It's going to be a next button to indicate navigating to the next window. So I've changed it to 30, and I'm going to change the content. Instead of saying button, it's going to say next on it. Great. So the idea is very simple application. They get a welcome screen, they enter their name, and they click on next, and it's going to navigate to a new window. So nothing new so far. This is all the stuff we would expect to do when we're creating our window. This is all using elements that we've done before. The next bit's the new part. So the first thing we need to do is we need to actually add a new window to our project. So remember, the project is structured such that it appears in bold. It's not quite at the top, it's second from the top. So you'll notice it's got the same name as what I gave it when I actually created the project. It's actually off the screen, but if you go right to the top here, Visual Studio, you'll see that you called it, in my case I called it navigation. And within the project are all the files associated with the project. We've talked about this before. These ones up here are configuration files that we don't edit, or we're not going to be editing as part of this course. And then following that are the list of files for each of our windows. And right now we've only got one window, so remember each window has got two files associated with it. the XAML file, which describes the interface and contains this code here, and the C# file, which contains the instructions that run when the user interacts with the window. Above a project is what we call a solution. So if you're working on a very large scale project, a big solution, then potentially it could actually comprise of multiple and many projects. The work could be subdivided across different project teams, which will then all come together to produce the final solution. So the solution's at the very top of the hierarchy. For all the projects we're going to be creating during this class, there will only be a single project within the solution. So we're going to have a one-to-one mapping here. So to add a window to the project, we simply go to the project name and we right click. We then go to add, and it gives us lots of options. Now we want to add a window, and if it's something that you frequently do, then Visual Studio very cleverly adds common steps to a shortcut, so it will actually appear in the menu. Because you've not done this before, you might find that the window option isn't there. So if it's there, great, you can click on it. If not, you can just say add new item, and it will give you a list of everything you can add to your project. And you'll notice a few from the top, there's the option to add a window, and it's a WPF window because it's part of the WPF project. So we can select on that, and then we can give it a name. So I'm just going to call this window 2. You can call it whatever you want, and click on add. And what you'll see is it automatically adds 2 new files. So at the same time, it gave us a new window in the designer, a new blank window, and it gave us 2 files associated with that new blank window. So we now have a new XAML file, which is currently not got anything in it, and we've got a new C# file. So this is the window we're going to navigate to. So we need to think about what we're going to put on this window. So at the moment, I'm going to be quite plain, keep it simple, and I'm just going to add a label, and it's set at 30, which is good, and I'm going to change the content to say welcome to the second window. Very straightforward. Oh, for some reason it's not actually updated it. There we go. That's perfect. Okay, so that's all I'm going to put on this window for now. So nothing particularly exciting, but it's just here for the purpose of demonstrating how to add another window. And now I'm going to go back and show you how to navigate. So we've now got 2 windows as part of this project. We've got main window and we've got window 2. And my idea is, in main window, when we click on this next button, I want it to automatically navigate to window 2. So right now, if I run this program, that won't actually happen because we've not written the code, but we'll just run it to show you. So it'll just take a wee minute, and it's going to load the main window as normal. So here's the main window. So I would put in my name, so let's just put in lecturer, and I would click on next, and right now it doesn't do anything because we've not written the code. But ideally I want to click on next and for it to navigate to window 2. So let's add that functionality in. Okay, so go back to main window. As always, when we want something to happen, we want an event to trigger, then we double click on whatever UI element it is that we want the instruction to be associated with. So I want something to happen when we click on this next button. So I'm going to create an event by double clicking on the next button. Oh, didn't double click fast enough. So when I double click, as you know, it automatically adds an event handler into the C# file that is associated with that window. So we're now in the main window XAML.cs, and it creates the method, header, and the brackets, and all we need to do is put our instructions in between these 2 brackets. So it gives you a good indication of what it's for. It's basically for, here's a set of steps that happen when the user clicks on the button called BTN Next. So what I want to happen is I want to navigate. So if you have a look at the slides for this week, you'll see that navigating to a new window always involves 3 steps, regardless of whether you're navigating forward to a window, or you're actually navigating effectively backwards to a previous window. It doesn't have any bearing on direction. Navigation is just navigation. It is direction independent. So there are 3 steps that we need to perform in order to navigate to our new window. The first thing we need to do is we need to actually create one instance of the new window. So right now we've got a design for the window, but we need to actually construct it. So we need to build it, construct it so that it exists, so that we can then navigate to a window that actually exists. So to build the window, we need to say what it is we're trying to build. So we're trying to build window 2 is what we've called it. So just a wee reminder, called it window 2. So we're saying I want to build a window 2. Now when we build a window, like anything, when we create something new, like building a house, we need to stick a label on it, a way to identify it. So if we're building a house, the house gets an address. So it gets a number put on it basically in a street. So same, when we create this window 2, we can create lots of instances of window 2. So we're going to create an instance just now and we want to stick a label on it. And that way now, once we stick a label on it, it means that we can find that window. Because when the window is created, it's actually created in memory. It's not automatically created and displayed on the screen. That doesn't happen. It gets created in memory. So it's still hidden in computer memory. So in order to be able to find it again, we need to stick a label on it so that we can grab it from memory. So I'm just going to stick the label on it, next window. You can call it whatever you want. And now I need to say the instruction for how we actually build the window. So if you remember previous weeks, we've talked about building a window is done by using the Windows constructor method. So every window has a constructor method. So if we go to window 2 and open the C# file, remember, without writing any code, we always get a class container to contain all the information for the window, and inside that container we always get one method for free, which is the constructor method. And we can identify the constructor method because it's got the same name as the actual class, which is also the same name as the window. And this has got one special instruction in it, which basically is the instruction that tells the computer to go and build the window, to actually put the items onto the window. So we want to effectively call this constructor method. We want to call the method and tell it to build the window, and we want to tell it to build it and save it in memory so that we can find it again. So let's go back to our main window code. So we've got 2 keywords we need to do here, one keyword plus the name of the constructor method. So the first thing we're going to say is we're going to use the word new. New basically means create something and put it in memory. And then we follow up with what it is we want to create. So we want to create a window 2. So to create window 2, we call that constructor method. So we're actually calling that method window 2, the one that I've just showed you here. So we're directly calling it. So it comes in here and it will build the window. So let me just run back through this instruction again, because it's probably the most complex instruction. It's the same process, so once you've done one, they're all exactly the same. So what we're doing is we are building a new window 2, because that's where we want to navigate to. So on the right hand side, we say what it is we're doing. We're building a new window 2. So new means it'll put it in memory, and window 2 with the brackets means it'll call the constructor method to actually build the window. Once it's created, that's going to be given a label, and it's going to be given this label next window. So once this window is created in memory, we're going to stick a label on it, and the label's called next window, and it means then we can use this label in future to find the window in memory. So that's step 1. So this is create the window we want to navigate to. Step 2 is we then want to actually display that window to the user, because right now at this stage it's created it but it's in memory. So the next step is we want to actually show it to the user. So display the new window to the user. So the way we do that is we use the label, so we can find it and grab it out of memory. So the label that we gave it is next window. So what do we want to do with the window? Once we find it in memory, what do we want to do? We want to display it to the user. So there's a special method that does that called show. So you can see it in the drop down list, and it's a method, so it's got round brackets straight after it. So this basically says get the window out of memory and show it to the user, so display it on the screen. At this point, we'll now actually for a brief second have two windows open. We'll have the new window, window 2, but we've still got main window open, the original window where we started. So the last step in the navigation is actually to close the original window. You don't have to close it. If, for instance, in your application it would make sense to keep the windows open, then that's absolutely fine, you can do that. Generally speaking though, when we're navigating through an application, we generally do, when we move forward, we do close where we came from. But it depends on the situation and what solution it is you're developing. So let's close the original window. So to refer to the original window, we've got a special keyword. And the keyword is actually this, which literally means this window. So it says take this window, and remember we put in our dot to tell it to do something. So these are all the things we can tell the window to do. So one of the things we can tell it to do is close. And again, it's a behaviour, it's a method, so it's got round brackets after it. So that's the final step. So 3 steps for navigating to a new window. Step 1, create the window we want to navigate to. Step 2, display the new window to the user. And step 3, close the original window. So let's give this a run and see how we go on. Okay, so here's the initial screen. So I'm going to fill it in with a name. Dear me. Click on next. So I'm expecting now to navigate. It's jumped onto my other screen. I'll bring it over. So it has, it's successfully navigated to the second window. And you'll notice that the other window is nowhere to be seen. It's closed. So that's the first step in navigation. And that's the same way you navigate no matter how complex your application is, no matter what direction you're navigating in. It's always 3 steps, to navigate to the window. Let's just do it one more time, just to make sure everybody's following what it is we need to do. So let's take our window 2, our new window, and let's add a back button. So we're navigating back to the original window. So let's add a button. There we go. And I'm going to give it a name, BTN back, and make it 30 pixels in size, and change the content to be back. Okay, so we're going to navigate again. So remember to click on this. When we click on it, we want it to move back. So create an event by double clicking. So this is saying here's what happens when someone clicks on the button called button back. So what we want to happen is we want it to navigate, and it's going to navigate to main window because that's the window we started on. So we want to navigate back to here. So again, 3 steps. Step 1, create the window we want to navigate to. So we want to navigate to main window. And we need to stick a label on it. So we need to first of all create it in memory and stick a label on it. So I'm just going to call it a original window. And to create it, we need to say new so that it gets created in memory, and then we need to call the constructor. So remember, the constructor has the same name as the window, but it's a method, so it's got these brackets in the end. So there's step 1. We're creating the window we want to navigate to. So it's going to create a new main window in memory, and it's going to stick this label on it called original window. The next step is to display the new window to the user. So remember, to do that, we first of all need to grab it out of memory using its label. So original window, we'll find it, and then we use a dot to show all the things that we can do, this window can do. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to show itself, we want it to display. Remember, if it's a behaviour, which this is, it's always got the round brackets after it. And then the final step is close the original window. So remember, to access the original window, we say this. So from this window, what do we want to do with this window? We want to close it. So 3 steps again. So it's exactly the same regardless of the direction of navigation. So that's 2 good examples of navigating. And once you've understood how to do it once, it's exactly the same process all the time. So let's demonstrate. So next navigates us to the second window, and then let's click on back. You can see that the original disappears, and I'll just drag this onto my screen. Then you can see we're back to the original main window. Okay, so that's the basics of navigation, really straightforward, always 3 steps. The next stage is to look at how we can transfer data between windows. So I'm going to do that in the next video. So I'm just going to stop this one just now, and then we'll pick it up in the next video. So in the meantime, you can have a wee practice at doing some navigation backwards and forwards with as many windows as you want to add into your project.